All right, we are back online. It is Wednesday, April 22nd. We are very, very excited to be with you all today for our third of our 8 series for webinars. This one is all about what makes a great practice website. And so as we begin, I would like to say, of course, a huge thank you to J&J Vision. As I've told every week, when we were deciding to run a series of 8 webinars to provide just information and support during the COVID crisis, our friends at J&J called and just said, what can we do to support and kind of go on the journey with you? So big thank you to them for their support on this. I would like to introduce my guest speaker today, Jessica Russell. She is our manager of website fulfillment. Jess, how are you today?
I am good. I'm excited.
Cool. You are in our team meetings when we on Fridays do what I love to call building isolationships. You are actually usually the person with the most interesting question, but I'm going to kick off today. I'd like you to introduce you a little bit about what your role is in our company, and I'm going to ask you about hobbies. You are one of the most interesting people I've ever met, and I'm sure that you have picked up some sort of hobby over this time at home.
Yeah. Obviously, in the evening, it's a little difficult to pass some time without feeling like you should just go right back to work and keep plugging away at things. So I've been trying to have more crafts and more hobbies to occupy my hands, essentially. So I've started cross-stitching quite a bit. I used to cross-stitch a lot when I was younger, but now that I've got a little more time to just sink into something, it's a really good hobby to like pour a glass of wine, settle up on the couch, put on some Netflix, and just busy yourself. So it's actually funny. I'll show when conveniently I'm right next to my craft basket, which is right by my couch, but I'm working on one right now from The Shining. It's all going to say,
Wow.
All work and no play. So it's kind of fitting, given the circumstances, to feel a little bit boxed into your house. So I chose that one for my quarantine project.
Awesome. And the way the game works, you have to ask me a question.
Oh, yeah. I know this game. Kevin, working from home in your new office setup, is there anything that you're really keen on that you really like as a part of your home office setup? Did he freeze?
You guys can hear me. Are we back online?
There we go, yeah.
There we go. You asked me about my home office, right? And so, yes, I went to our actual office and picked up a plant. So I have a few different plants in our office. I went there to save them. And I also went and picked up a standing desk, which has been a complete lifesaver for me. So and for those that don't know me, my name is Kevin Wilhelm. I am the president and co-founder of Marketing for ECPs. We are a digital marketing agency specifically servicing the eye care industry, opticians, optometrists, mainly supporting independent practices. These webinars are purely built to help support you while you're at home. We did the first one on social media. The second one, we are joined by Dr. Joe Allen with YouTube and all regarding how to grow your YouTube channel. So if you'd like to watch those videos, go back in our Facebook channel or our YouTube channel, and those will be there. We also have built a COVID resource page on our website, and there you can find ebooks and webinars and a lot of just downloadable guides. So very proud of the team for putting all that together. Please go and download those. Jess, let's dive in. And as we get going, I do want to also mention that as we talk about what makes a great practice website, I want to throw out there that we are just providing complimentary website audits for anybody that would like to have sort of our team go through and tell you what is strong with your website, what could potentially be improved. We'll look at site speed. We're going to look at unique copy and design and all those things. So you go to our website at marketingforecvs.com. You just fill out the audit form. We do the audit, and then we contact you. And we actually walk you through it step by step. So love to do that. Jess, can you just let's start out. We're starting at the beginning from a practice website. What is the opportunity? Like, what is the actual digital opportunity for people?
Good question. So when we're looking at website searches overall, we're seeing about 104 million searches in the vision and vision services industry each month. So there's a lot of potential there growing. That's a huge number though, so it's not the most practical one to look at when we're thinking about what's happening locally. I like to look at what's more relevant to searches within your area. So if you're having a population of, I think it's in the next slide.
Yep.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, right here.
There you go. Yeah, we usually find around 2,500 visits per month to a practice website in an urban city, and then a little bit, about half that for rural cities and towns. So those are a bit more tangible numbers that you can reflect in your own practice.
Okay, and then so now we see the opportunity. There's a ton, millions of searches happening a month on Google. We're seeing what the average website right now is bringing in just based on our portfolio. What is the actual job of the website?
The job can really be whatever you want it to be. I think most people look at their website as a tool to grow their business. And that's really how I like to approach websites is what is the point of having it up there? There's a lot of different options out there to build a website. You can build one just like essentially an online business card, but really a good website should act as a tool to grow your business.
Okay, and I do want to say a reminder to anybody watching, please fill out any questions that you have. We do have sort of about 40 minutes planned today to go through, and we will answer. If a question is coming up, we'll hold it until then. And if it's topical and we don't have it in the presentation, then Jess and I will stop and answer that sort of at that time. So feel free to put any questions you have in. If at the end we haven't gotten around to answering, we will go back in the chats and type in the answer to those questions. So please keep them coming. Jess, you kind of mentioned the website is a tool for your business. How do you know if it's performing well?
Well, how I usually like to look when I'm auditing a website, first and foremost, I want to see what the conversion rate is of the site. Essentially, your conversion rate is if you take all of the visitors to your site, how many of them are completing the goals that you want them to do? So I guess when you're really figuring out what is the job of your website, with that, you also want to figure out the goals that you want them to complete. Do you want them to call the practice? Do you want them to visit an online booking portal? Do you want them to order contacts online? Do you want them to just simply send you a general message? Figure out kind of what is the most tangible way that you want new patients coming in and set that up as your goal tracking. Your website conversion rate is essentially the simple math of how many people come to your website, what percentage of them complete one of those goals.
And so for eye care practices, typically we're seeing a goal to be a phone call as primary. If you have an online booking system, that would be a goal. We also kind of feel like if you're an optician, a lot of times it's just driving in and just coming right in and trying on eyewear. So kind of taking a second to establish what is the goal of the site, I think you said is important, and understanding in your business what that actually means if somebody were to do that in terms of sort of a financial overview of that. So,
and every business is a little bit, everybody's business is a little bit different. How you like to receive appointments is really going to be based on how you set up your entire administrative system. If you're using an online portal that does everything electronically, then when you're designing your website, you really want to make sure that that's what you're calling people to do, is to visit that portal. If you've got a great friendly reception staff and you want people to call and book their appointment and get their whole consultation started with the on the telephone, then that's where you want to drive people to go. If you're fully all about contacts and you just want online shopping to happen on your site, that has to be very present.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here we have sort of like a back of the napkin type math, and we're going to show what the impact, the financial impact of a website conversion rate actually is. So, walk us through some of these numbers here.
Cool. So we just did some kind of simple math going off of the average conversion rate in the eye care industry. So we took 400 website visits, and I kind of looked at these as 400 new visits. This isn't including, repeat customers and people. This is just purely new business growth that you're looking
prospects.
at. Prospects. Okay. Yeah, people that are finding you online that are new to your practice. So we took about 400. That's usually, if you have 1,000 visitors to your site, that's about 40% is new traffic coming in. This is with no advertising going into it. This is just finding you online. If your website conversion rate is about 5% and you're noticing overall that's how your website's performing, from those 400 visitors, you're looking to gain about 20 leads of people that'll either order, contacts, call, go on your online booking form, what have you.
Okay, so 5% is what you're seeing on average. That's kind of when we take over a website, we'll throw some tracking on, we see sort of what it performs. And so what we're saying is generally people will go on at least 3 websites before they make a decision. So you kind of already, you're 1 in 3, and then some people will go on a website and not buy. They're researching and they're looking at the future. So 5%, so 1 out of 20. So out of 400 people, we have 20 leads.
Yeah, that can really be impacted, like Kevin said, of people that are shopping around from different websites. So maybe you're competitor's website is a bit more attractive. It looks a little bit sexier, so they just like working with that project website better. It's just giving them a better vibe. Or it could be purely usability. Maybe they can't find what they're looking for on your site and they just give up and say, okay, on to the next one. That's usually where you see lower conversion rates happening.
Okay. And so here you have sort of a lead to patient rate at 30%. Can you explain that a little bit?
So typically when someone calls, we don't want to automatically say that because they called the practice, they definitely booked an appointment and are coming in to spend revenue. I think we would love to see 100% of your leads turn into clients, but that's just generally not how it goes. We like to see, in our experience, we've done about 30% of new leads actually become patients, walk in the door and buy product or book an appointment with you. So when we're kind of looking at your overall conversion rate, you have to take a fraction of that to how many people will actually probably step in the door and do something. Yeah.
Got it. So 30%, probably pretty low when you consider, if 20 people were to call you this month, you could probably see more of them. But if you kind of take the low worst case scenario, 30% of them become a patient, and then, a $300 revenue per patient on the first time new visit. So you're saying, generally a 5% conversion rate, if you're not really doing marketing, can generate about $1,800 of new patient revenue a month.
Yeah. And that 30% can really be varied depending on the type of lead that's coming in. So phone calls, we normally see about 30% of phone calls convert into an actual appointment. Some people might just be calling to get information. Maybe they just need your hours. Maybe they're just wondering if you carry a certain brand. Maybe that information is not really clear on your website, so they need to call instead. But we're saying about 20% of those phone calls 30% of those 20 phone calls would become actual booked appointments. And then if you look at average industry revenue, a booked appointment is about $300 with, anything that goes into it, with the glasses purchased, with any other types of services. Average revenue per patient about $300. That would be $1,800 in revenue.
So anyone at home can just pull up in their Google Analytics. They can look at these numbers themselves, kind of use the averages. And then the point of this webinar is to kind of talk about what are some things that you can do with your website to increase that conversion rate. And then next week, as we talk about SEO and digital advertising, we'll talk about how we increase the number of overall website visits as well. So I think right now we're kind of showing what you may be walking into if you don't do a lot of marketing, if your website is kind of stagnant, hasn't been updated, and we're going to go through how to improve all of that. So we talk about like strategy. How should the website just be built? So let's kind of, somebody decides they want to work with you, Jess, and they're saying, you're providing them advice. How should a website be built?
Yeah, so I usually focus on the 3 pillars of website design, which is design function, content and structure, and performance. These are how we kind of split the different categories of we look when we're auditing a website. Is how does it look? Who is it speaking to? How have you presented your information? Is it easy to find? And then the back end of your website is really your performance. Is it fast? Is it set up properly? Do you have the right tracking on there? All of that goes into here.
Got it. So let's actually dive in. So how long do you have to make that sort of first impression when it comes to a website?
First impression varies on desktop versus mobile. Generally, you do have a little bit of a longer window when someone's looking at your website on their desktop because there's a bit more information to digest in such a big screen. We usually find 8 seconds is about the amount of time you have to impact on desktop. On mobile, it's closer to 3. People on mobile are busy. They want to get to the next thing. They're not scrolling for hours and hours trying to find information. You have about 3 seconds to make a first impression on a mobile device.
Got it. So design and functionality really matter with that one. Can you speak a little bit more and kind of go into some detail in terms of design and functionality?
Yeah, I would love to. So really, when you're thinking of design and functionality, when a customer's journey starts, it typically is going to start online, and your website is the first impression that you're going to make to that client. So you have to think about, how is your website representing you? Is it speaking to who you are as a business? Is it speaking to who you want to attract? Is it clearly articulating what you do in this practice? One of the biggest ways I find that you can get off on the right foot is investing in photography. If you are a practice that is saying we have the absolute best customer service, we invest in amazing technology, we're giving you the most premier type of service you could ever want when you're coming to your eye doctor, you can trust us with everything, but then your website is filled with the same cheesy stock photography that you get everywhere else, or the pictures are 15 years old and pixelated and grainy, it's kind of sending conflicting messages. And the first one that they're going to see is the more negative one because it's the first impression there.
Interesting. So if you have spent a lot of money designing your optical and your clinic to look sort of like this. Like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you recommend that custom photography of the practice?
Yes, I would highly recommend if you have cool design elements, like you can see in this practice, they've got these really wicked paintings and like a cool monochromatic with little pops of color in here. Like, this is very well designed website. I mean, well, it's a well-designed website, but it's a well-designed practice interior. So when they did their photography, it wasn't just, okay, click, 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 we're done. They really went into the nitty-gritty details so that we could take those details and build them into the site. So it's not just a white site with a picture. You can really grab some of these nuances and design the site to match this aesthetic.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because I talk to practice owners all the time that spend a lot of money developing and renovating their practice. And when I ask why, they say, well, it's the first impression. And I want to create that emotional appeal, and I want to sell more frames and just create a great patient experience. But we know that 90% of all offline transactions, they go online to find something, whether it's address or hours or billing information, or they're going there to find out who the doctors are. Can I book an appointment? So really, even if they've been referred or they've driven by, the website is actually the first impression. So we spend all this money on the dispensary, and sometimes we don't put the same effort and care and strategy into the design of our website. And there's a total there's a missed opportunity to set the stage from the beginning. And that might be why we see low conversion rates on some sites, because you're not showing off really who you are and the practice personality. A lot of times I see as well, if we're using, a lot of times I see the same websites. I see the same photos, the same imaging, the same headlines. And so if you're a patient deciding who should I do business with, and I see the same website or the same kind of look and feel 3 times in a city, I don't know why I would choose you. And so I think showing off the inside works really well. What about people that don't have a beautifully designed clinic like this? What would you recommend to somebody that might have more of an older practice, an older look and feel? How can they show off who they are?
With your staff, really, is the way to do it. If your staff are what really make your practice unique, focus on them on the website. Highlight, take staff photos engaging in the product, trying on glasses. You don't have to use stock photography on everything else. Use your staff doing procedures. If they're administering dry eye drops, stage a little mini mock photo shoot so that it feels personal. Because if you're saying we deliver a personal experience, we are here, we're like family, well, then the family needs to be on the website, because that's a selling point of who you are. And what I love about this photo here that we put in here is, I know this practice to be a pretty high-tech practice. And we always use the analogy that if someone says, I am high-tech, I'm investing in all of the best equipment, but then you walk into the office and they're using an old school tube monitor to do all of their bookkeeping, it sends a very conflicting message, where I know just from this image, I can see the Mac screens, I can see there's consistency, it's clean, it's white, it looks very modern. It's almost like you're walking into the Apple store. That gives me a sense that I don't even have to see the back and what they purchase in technology. I know that this is a place that is taking a lot of investment and pride into their patient experience.
Yeah, it sets the stage, right? So let's talk about persona, right? And when somebody comes to your website, how can you speak directly to them? What is the strategy when it comes to the persona?
Yes. The persona is a big thing. We could go a lot into how you develop your client persona, but it's really kind of going into who you want to attract. Look at who your current client demographic is and who you want it to be. Maybe your area is blossoming into more of a smaller family community. You want to make sure that your website is reflecting who you want to come into the practice. You don't want to have, if you're trying to attract millennials and you're in the middle of a city, you don't want to have something that looks like it's in the countryside with a whole bunch of folks that are, in their plus 70s. You need to make sure that the photographs and the aesthetic are matching who you're trying to go for. So if you're looking for families, you're looking to attract moms, pick women as your models that are going to look like moms, that are looking like they're having a happy family in their type of demographic, what's the word I'm looking for, landscape of your community. So if you're in a small town, the photos should reflect a small town. Your photos shouldn't look like you're in the middle of Brooklyn. It should look familiar. It should feel like, oh, I'm connecting with this emotionally. This is a practice that's speaking to what I need just by the visuals alone. And also how they speak, how they want to address their concerns. So if you want to target millennials, don't use super stuffy technical language. Speak to them. Speak like you would on Instagram. Have a different kind of tone to connect with them so it's more relatable, and address their concerns more than anything. Whatever their concerns are going to be for that type of demographic, make sure that those are forefront and center. If you want to attract women in their 40s and 50s and dry eye, prosopia, these are all the things that are going to be the biggest concerns. Those should be really highlighted.
We're having a few questions in the feed about what happens if staff are camera shy, or you maybe don't even have staff, you're kind of the sole proprietor. So in this situation, I would suggest that stock photography is totally fine as long as it matches your brand personality. And then to make it unique, you can take that stock photography and actually add some design elements to it. And so you can edit it and put filters on it. And we'll show you a few examples as well. And so it doesn't have to be, but it does give that personal touch if you can show people that are in your practice. Hiring a professional photographer would be one way to go because they are very good at bringing out the best in people. So it may take a little longer, but great photographers can bring out that personality in your staff. So Jess, we kind of talked about who we're building the website for. We talked about design and functionality. I'd like you to touch again a little bit on that first impression. And we talk about you have such limited time to make a impact on your prospect. And so what are some kind of do's and don'ts that you would say about capitalizing on that 8 seconds on desktop and only 3 on mobile?
Yes. A couple of good do's and don'ts. Very strongly, you'll find there's sometimes a draw to want to put a lot of bells and whistles on your first impression because you're like, I only have so much time. We just need to cram as much information in there as possible. And what you're doing is you're diluting your message. You're making it harder for them to see a strong point. And in my opinion, it tends to come off as a little bit insecure. It's like, boom, boom, boom. There's so many things here. Why can't I just have one message? Like there's a lot to think about then when there's so much going on that I like to instead pick a strong image, one strong headline, and direct them where you want them to go to book an appointment. The more music you have playing off in the background, this kind of shiny objects are just really, they seem really cool from the outside looking in, but then when you're actually using it as an independent party, they tend to just be a bit distracting. So we generally can recommend going against it and instead pick one headline, pick one image, and feel strong about it.
Okay, and so I think we have an example here that I'd like you to walk everybody through.
Yeah. So this was a beautiful website that I worked on with our beautiful creative team for Vision Dynamics in Danville. So look at the website. Vision Dynamics, Danville's home for eye care. Very clear. This is where you're coming to get eye care in Danville. Nice and clean. Vision Dynamics. But what also I'm seeing here is the amount of work that's gone into creating this custom design. This doesn't look like it was just pulled off of Shutterstock. This has all been tailored to match this client's aesthetic. The vibes that they come in here, it's a very women-friendly kind of clinic. The doctors love this type of imagery. And actually the flowers echo some paintings that they put into the practice. So we really went into the owners and the staff's kind of personalities to pull out this design. And it wasn't the first go. This was, I think, second time around. We did one iteration. And then after we did a little more discovery, we came through with this completely different vision and they absolutely loved it. So we've made it very easy when someone lands on this webpage to get an idea of who they are. And then just simple things, phone number right there, text or call. There are 3 call to action buttons. What do you want them to do? They want to drive contact sales and they want to get people to book an appointment. So that's quite obvious there. We've included our brands because they are a high optical practice that want to increase their dispensary sales. So we want to call that out that they have fashion on the nose.
And here's an example of sort of a stock photo, but being able to add that floral overlay on there using nice fonts, and it really kind of pops and makes it feel unique, right? And that's sort of the suggestion if you're going to use stock photography.
Yeah, there are definitely ways to use stock photography and have it look expensive and look rich without looking cheesy. Just takes a good eye.
Great. And here's another example. This is Park Slope this is Dr. Justin Bazan's practice. And it's funny, we brought our team to Vision Expo a few years ago in New York. And the designer who worked on this had kind of gone through Brooklyn and gone through New York and felt very inspired. And so when she worked on this practice's design, she brought in a lot of that sort of graffiti look and feel. And so when you land on this site, immediately it just feels like it's a different experience. And then when you use a headline like "an experience as unique as art," it sort of ties in what you can expect when you go into the practice. It's not going to be the same as everyone else. And if you know Justin, you know you're not going to get the same experience as anyone else. But this is a kind of another example of it is a custom kind of feel to set up the expectations and build an emotional connection with prospective patients that may be booking.
Yeah, this website's gorgeous.
Let's jump into the second pillar that you talked about, content and structure. What are the jobs of content?
Content has a few different jobs. It's essentially, you want to be able to answer the questions that people are searching for. So if someone's on dry eye page, what are they likely wanting to know? They want to know about symptoms. They want to know about treatments. They want to know their options. So kind of creating a hierarchy of what people are most concerned about. And that's what you're addressing first. So if you just stop at the top, if you're looking at your dry eye page and the first thing is just a whole bunch of products that you sell, well, that's not as enticing because most people don't know what those products are, why they need them. So you kind of have to use a storytelling as you're going through these pages in order to deliver what they're most likely needing next. If they have if they have red eyes at home, they probably want to know the symptoms first and foremost so that they're like, oh, is this even applicable to me? And then it goes into the treatment options. With that, definitely want to remain medically accurate. You don't want to sound like it's something like written by someone who's never been an optometrist before, but still being written for layman's. If you go too high tech, too medical, it's just going to be over the regular person's head. And remember, websites, 90% of the traffic is going to be from clients, from normal patients that are not up on the lingo of optometry. So keeping it relatable, adding analogies and metaphors so that it's relatable to what they're trying to experience is really key. And then the last part, obviously, is when you're writing content, this is how SEO is really impacted, is how you structure your content on your page. If it's a giant wall of text, you're going to get dinged for that by Google because that's not a pleasant reading experience. It's just quantity over quality. It's better to organize it so it's digestible and people can scan your headlines and see what they're looking for without having to get bogged down by too much text.
Got it. We've had a couple questions on YouTube from Kelly and Sherry regarding how often should you update your website? And I might take this one. I think the answer to this one is it's as often as you need to update information in your practice. So as you carry new products and services, obviously the website needs to be a critical piece of just information on who you are. But the advice that you've probably heard over the years of updating the website regularly really applies to ongoing content and more topical things. That's where a blog can come in. And we're going to talk about that in subsequent webinars, one on SEO next week and another one in a few weeks regarding becoming a local thought leader. And that's where you take topics that you're interested in, questions you wish that you could answer or information you wish your patients knew, questions that you frequently answer. And those are types of content that you want to create on a blog in the website so that there is more information getting added so that Google, when it's indexing, continues to go, oh, there's more valuable information on here today than there was yesterday, which means they're going to come back, index it again. And the more they're indexing it, the more they're finding great content, the more of a resource that they see the website is, and they're going to show it higher on search engines. So that's sort of why we do that. And we're going to get into that in more detail next week. Jess, you kind of use the analogy of a homepage being like Grand Central Station. Can you give us a little bit more context as to what you mean by that?
Yeah. So when I'm looking at a homepage and I'm creating the content structure, I'm looking at it as kind of your table of contents almost a little bit. It's guiding you of where you want people to go. Your homepage is not meant to fill with everything that you possibly do. It's your guidance. So people are coming here. We want to make sure that visitors are knowing what they're looking for. We're kind of guiding them where the buttons are, following kind of natural instincts of where your eyes move from left to right, and making sure that the most common things and the most profitable things are the ones that they're being really drawn to. But if they're looking for something specific, we're making it easy for them to navigate through the menu to figure out what they're looking for. We also want to give them a little tidbit of who you are as a practice. You don't want to just show up and be at a menu bar. It has to have some warmth. It's really your first impression. So give them a little idea of what you do with the practice, write something personal, and then kind of guide them on what you want to do next. If they're scrolling through the entire homepage, there should be some very clear call to action saying, oh, you're interested in dry eye? Click this to learn more. Click this to book a consultation. You're interested in our brands? Well, click this button to go see all of the brands. Kind of use it as a, where do you want to go? And we'll get you there.
Sounds good. So we have sort of an example here of Abbey Eye Care in Oakville, Ontario. Our friends Jeff and Tina Goodhue, they have an excellent layout of their site. They offer a lot of different services and brands. Here you can sort of see an example of how it's all set up. A mistake that I see often with websites is that we're not putting enough website on different pages. You may have like one service page and include kind of everything that you do. And what ends up happening is, if I want to go and see if you offer, treatment for glaucoma or dry eye or vision therapy, and it's buried with like 2 sentences on a service page and there's 30 different services, it's so hard for me to find. And it's like the Grand Central Station analogy that I show up at the train station, I need to catch my train, but I have no idea what platform. There's no signs anywhere. I have to really dig and find it. It does not create a great travel experience. And so when you look at the navigation of these websites, it's really important to create individual pages for each service that you offer and then make it clear and easy to find. And that's what creates an amazing experience online. And that's one way you can get your conversion rates to go up.
Yeah. And one thing I like to note on too is think about how people are landing on your website. Some people are just searching eye doctor near me and they click on the button and it brings you to your homepage. Other searches could be talking about dry eye treatment and glaucoma. If they click those buttons and those are leading to your dry eye and myopia pages, think about what kind of information they're getting from there. Would they have to click all over the website then to figure out where you're located, how to contact you, what else is offered at your practice? This is why we build our service pages to be quite robust. So it gives the overview of the topic that you're looking for, but then at the bottom, it still has all of the quick links that we typically know people are looking for.
Cool. And how has the user, and I'll use user as a person on a website, how has the behavior changed on websites? How are we interacting with websites differently now than we did, say, even like 3-4 years ago?
Yeah. This is how we interact with websites now.
Yeah.
Like truly, that's when you're looking at your website, look on mobile first. That's really the first place because that's where the bulk of your traffic is going to be, and bulk being close to 60 to 70% come through on mobile. So look at how that experience is. If your website is just a shrunken down version and it's all tight and hard to click through and weird, that's not a great sign because that doesn't make for a nice mobile experience. Mobile experience is all about scroll, scan, scroll, scan. Make sure that your headlines are very clear and differentiated so that people are looking, because they're not going to read through a whole bunch of text on these things. They're looking for something specific. So this is why we use a lot of toggles when we're building out sections so that it's not just a long paragraph of text, but it's like, oh, symptoms, click here, drop down, easy to navigate. If I'm only looking for treatments, I can click that and it'll navigate. It's just a way better user experience than having this huge page to go through. Yeah,
makes sense. I know that's exactly how I scroll now. I'm someone that doesn't read through every piece of text. I'm kind of scanning very frequently. I try to spend the least amount of time as I can to make a decision. When you get to a homepage like this, you have this broken out very kind of clearly, almost like there's a strategy regarding the hierarchy of information. Can you just go through a little bit of the strategy you use when you're creating the hierarchy of information?
You stole hierarchy. That was my word. I wanted to use that one. So what you're doing is creating a hierarchy of information. So your homepage, the hero image at the very top where your primary buttons are, that's the first impression. That's the boom. That's where most people are actually going to do their business. They don't even scroll down a little bit. They're just hitting that homepage. So making sure that you have very clear buttons there and the navigation's at the top and people can go where they want to go is key. After that, we usually find about the halfway mark, right after services, is where you start seeing a bit of drop down. So someone's on your website and they're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. People are impatient. They probably won't make it all the way down to the footer. So we want to make sure that the things that are above the half section are your most important. And we're kind of ranking them from most important to least important. Everything is important, but that's kind of how the struggle goes with it. So we want to make sure that the first thing that people are seeing on your homepage is a nice introduction of who you are. If I don't know who you are, I'm not going to care about what you do. So I need a little bit of a blurb here, and ideally a great picture to kind of showcase this is our essence in one little section here. It piques their interest. It makes them want to keep scrolling. Then you have your key services. This is what you specialize in. You want people to see what you do. Hey, I know who they are. They do what I'd like them to do. I kind of care about them now. I guess, where are they located? So that's what comes next. Where's your location? Great. That's pretty much all I need to get started. We have a little bit of bonus there for people that are super curious, and that is your branding section, which is going to feature some of the lines that you carry, and your Instagram section if you have an active presence on Instagram.
Yeah, and we have put user experience tracking on our website for years. And in the beginning, kind of a funny story I say is the first website we ever launched, our client, the optometrist, said, everybody cares about eye health. And they sort of right at that why choose us section, they wanted a big article about eye health with a, just a library of links to different eye health articles. And through our tracking, we saw that 75% of people that got to that section left, and they bounced right off the site before ever getting into the how do I contact you, which is really important. Yeah. So taking that information, we sort of retesting and moving and prioritizing and creating that hierarchy of where different information should go. And this has now been the best combination that we have found to absolutely help increase conversion rates. And the last thing I'm going to say too is about the brands at the bottom. Why it's so important to include some of the brands that you work with is part of who you carry, the brands that you choose to provide. It does tell your story. You have made a decision of which brands to bring into your practice. And I hope it's not purely based on price, that they are the lowest cost. You've identified with either innovation or technology or the warranties or whatever that is. Be proud to show off the brands that you carry, because a lot of times our eye care consumers have identified with that brand themselves, and they're there to find out, do you carry that brand? And so whether it's AccuView or it's it's Maui Jim or it's Oakley or Ray-Ban, put some of those brands there, especially the popular ones, so that when people get to your website, they know, oh, they carry that. I know that when I go there, I can buy that. So really important. We had a question here that I do want to touch on. It's from Kelly on YouTube asking how important are staff bios. The About Us page is the second most visited page on your website, aside from your homepage. It blew my mind when I started seeing that continually come back and back and back, being the number 2 most popular page on your site. We know that the About Us page can make or break whether somebody chooses to call you. And if you are, and when you look at why do people choose you, so many times people say it's because of our staff, it's because of our people. And so how important are staff bios? Exceptionally important. Showcase, show them off, show the personality. You don't have to just do the on the white background kind of picture. It can also be I saw an optician website years ago where they were playing hide and seek. And so the entire staff bio page was where they were hiding in the office. And so it was just like a really fun, interesting way to get to know the different members of the staff. So
I was going to say that too. Definitely don't have to stick any too rigid with the pictures. One of the other questions here was how can I use the staff picture as a hero image? Absolutely. When picking hero images, they're the largest images across your screen. So just recommend making sure you have a very large file so no one looks pixelated or out of zoomed, because it can be a little bit wonky that way. If it's just on your iPhone, it might not be quite high enough quality. But if you have a decent camera and you take a nice, cool staff photo, love that. It makes the website feel so much more personalized to you. So that is an excellent idea.
So what about, medical specialization? I've been fortunate enough to be a speaker for the Canadian Dry Eye Summit, and I was supposed to be doing the vision therapy one this summer. We know how important optometry, medical optometry is right now, in really trying to pull yourself out of commoditization and just looking at price and convenience. Medical optometry is a great way to differentiate yourself. How important is it to have individual pages on each of the medical specializations that practices offer?
Super important. Essentially, if you want to rank in Google for dry eye therapy, you have to have a page dedicated to dry eye therapy. If it's just a line on a page of a bunch of services, you're not gonna rank. It's just not gonna show up that you offer it. So very critical to have pages on things that you want to focus on. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a page on everything and get super micro, because there is the opposite of that. Is if you have to click to too many pages to get the story of what you're looking for, that can also have some negativity in the user experience. So I personally recommend doing strong service pages that cover what you need them to do, but dedicating them to each treatment that you really want to focus on, especially if ranking is a concern of yours. Not everybody is concerned about ranking about sports vision eyewear, but dry eye therapy, obviously medical niches, myopia, vision therapy, these are all things that are really growing right now. Make sure your pages are speaking to the questions that people are going to have to those.
Yeah, and I know just because we don't have a page on this, but those service pages, just like you've said, should almost be, if you ever heard the term landing page, they should each be developed that way, so that if someone were to just land there, they have all the information they need to make a buying decision. They have your address, they have maybe a testimonial, they have kind of bullet points as to what to expect when they get there. So any page you have, whether it's medical specialization or a service page, would be great. Jess, what's one of the big no-nos when it comes to copy?
Duplicate content.
Okay.
I can't speak more passionately about duplicate content. There's a really negative side of it, which is just plagiarism, which is ripping it off. But then there's the other side of it of sometimes when you're working with different companies, their ways of keeping the price down is making the content on each of their clients' websites pretty much identical. What this does is it essentially tells Google, I'm not special, I potentially plagiarized this, and Google's going to say, no, ding, 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 down on the rankings you go, you're not going to show up anymore. So it's very critical to have original written content on your website in your own words, speaking to what you do personally. And the way you can find that out is there's a website called Copyscape. If you're ever curious about it, you can put your website in there and see what it shows up in terms of, hey, is this page plagiarized? Better to do that probably on one of your service pages than your home pages, and then you should be able to see right away. Or do the marketing audit at the bottom there and we can check that out for you.
Yeah, so we do include, perfect. Like we do include a Copyscape review through the marketing audit. We run through various pages of your website through Copyscape, which basically looks at every page indexed, and they say how many times that exact copy is showing up. And it's surprising, probably 80 to 85% of the websites we do audits for come back with a lot of duplicate content. And what that's doing, and as Jess alluded to, it prevents you from showing up really high online, because Google doesn't know who the original author was. And so they don't like showing multiple sites that are all the same. They like to know who that original creator is of the valuable content, and that's what they show. So having unique copy is really important, both from a brand perspective of sounding like you, but also from an organic social media. We're going to talk more about that again next week with SEO.
Yeah, I did want to answer one question here from KCR. Hello. In terms of pictures versus content on each page, would you recommend 60-40? I don't look at it necessarily as percentage. Think about what your copy is communicating. There's lots of different ways to communicate ideas that's outside of text. There's photos, there's videos, there's YouTube things you can make yourself just to hit different sensory plateaus. This is what was talked about in last week's webinar with YouTube, is you're hitting them in a couple of different sensories. But it's not necessarily about having to have a photo, this matching text, a photo, this matching text. The photo needs to really be supporting and delivering content. So if it's a great infographic that is explaining something about dry eye, that will last a whole lot better and do better service than just having like a photo being there of a woman with dry eye, just be like, hey. So really think about how the different mediums that you're including are supporting the conversation.
Cool. So now let's move on to Mobilegeddon. April 2015, big update. How has that affected pretty much every website online?
Mobile speed is more important than it has ever been before. So many things go into impacting your mobile speed. big part of it is how you put your images on your website, how it's built from the back end. Is it designed to be responsive so that it shifts between an iPhone, a iPad, computer? Is it applicable in all of these sites, or is it just kind of breaking in different sections? All of those can impact your site speed. And there are some serious consequences to having a website that loads pretty slowly on mobile. As you can see, the bounce rates significantly increase by only a couple of seconds being added to your load time. So we aim to do under 3 seconds. That's kind of the golden standard right now. Anything over 6 seconds, you're out of there. And it's not just the bounce rate of your patients coming to your website, it's the bounce rate of Google saying, hey, your website's super slow. We're going to ding you again, go down in rankings. No one's going to find you.
And it's because as people, we are incredibly impatient and becoming more and more impatient as it goes. So if you think about going on your phone, trying to find a menu for a restaurant, and you're really hungry and it's taking 10 seconds to load, you in your head will say, it's faster for me to go back, go to the next pizza place, click on their menu, because I think I can find it in less than the however long this is going to load. So apply the same principles that you are as a consumer online to your website. And when you go to your website, like bring your phone out right now, go to your site and look at some of these things in the mind of a new patient that doesn't know who you are. They don't have that preconceived notion of what great service you offer. They're just going in for the first time. What's the impression you're making? And load speed definitely matters. So Jess, what are some ways for people listening right now that they could actually improve the performance or decrease the load time?
Yeah, these are some really good habits you can reflect on your website. One of them is kind of what we chatted about in the beginning, is the shiny objects. If you're using a lot of audio sliders or audio music or videos instead, all of these things need load time. So typically if they're at the top there, they need to load before anything else will. So that's going to just kill your load speed overall. So take a look and see if those are really worth it, because generally we recommend one strong image, one strong headline, and that'll ensure that it's not just only confident in the message that you want to say, but it's not negatively impacting your load speed. Optimize your image files is the big one. If you're adding blogs and galleries and staff images and things like this, they need to be optimized. There's a simple program you can run your photos through where you literally just zip them all up, pop them into this online program, and it spits it out just a lot smaller sizes, but still pretty high quality in terms of like pixelation. And that'll just help so much that the website doesn't have to load these like 2-3 megabyte photos every time. And also just the way that you build it, there's a way to build your website so that it's loading as you're going, as opposed to demanding the load to be fully complete before you can start scrolling. If you've ever been to a website where it's like chunks of it are not loaded and chunks of it are, you have to build it in a way that it's essentially loading from the top down, but as you're scrolling, so that by the time you scroll, it's loaded and you don't see any of that negativity at the bottom that hasn't loaded yet, and it's making your overall load speed really crappy.
Yeah, and just to touch on a few of these, like sliders are sort of the creative director's best friend. You have so many things I want to say, I want to get it all there. These were great when websites were horizontal. We have now entered that sort of vertical age to match the phone. And so it's completely fine to put the different images vertically on top of each other to say everything you want to say. A way to test your image file size is go to your website, right click, save as, and see how large that image is. A lot of times what happens, especially custom photos, your photographer walks into the practice, they have amazing, beautiful digital camera, they take a picture, they save it, they send it to the web developer, they throw it on the website, and they're using a like print ready file, massive DPI, file size for a web which you do not need. And so that's where Jess is saying you can compress it and you can just stick it right on the website. As we move forward, I think looking at tracking is really important. I talked about sort of that user experience, and this is sort of what it does, right? It's super cool to look at how people are interacting with sites. What are the different tools that are out there that anybody can really have access to evaluate the effectiveness of their website?
For sure. So if you remember from the back of the napkin from like slide number 4, those numbers that we were looking at of how do you know what percentage your website is converting at. And that's essentially through these tools. So the average industry website, it converts usually between 5 and 7%. How we find those numbers is through one, Google Analytics should be on every site. This is essentially tracking all of the traffic that comes to your site. You can set it up so it's also tracking goals. If someone clicks this certain button, if they go to your online contact order portal, you can track essentially everything that they're doing and their journey through your website. So this is a great place to start to make sure you've at least got some data coming in that you can start reflecting on. And Google Analytics is a pretty user-friendly portal. There's a lot there, but pretty much what you need, the basics are pretty easy to get to and clearly understood. Lucky Orange is another great tool that we like to use that is essentially your heat mapping tracking. So remember when we said, if you're going through, most people lose and drop out at about this section, maybe there's something really blocking them that they don't like right after the hero, and then you're just getting crazy bounce rates. This is how you find that out. You can put heat map tracking on your site. You can see where percentage-wise most people are leaving your site. You can see based on little heat spots what people are clicking on. And this also gives you a lot of information of how you can improve your website. Because if you're looking at your site and you're like, I don't even know where to begin, this is the first place that I like to go, is put on some tracking, see what people are attempting to click on. Are they clicking on icons that don't go anywhere? Maybe that looks like a button and it actually isn't a button. That's something that you can change on your site really quickly and say, hey, this is something people are interested in, but it doesn't go anywhere. Let's make this a button. Or people are clicking a whole lot more on call us versus booking an appointment. Okay, well, that's a great way that you can start making that more present on your website. And finally, call tracking is the biggest one that I like to do. Essentially what we do is put a ghost number on your phone, on your website, so that whenever somebody calls from your website, we can see where they're coming from. So did they come to your website via an ad? Did they come to your website via Facebook? Did they come to your website via just finding you online and calling through to the right number? And that's a great way too that you can start reflecting on what type of marketing you're doing is more profitable, and also what kind of marketing maybe isn't working for you. So maybe every time someone calls from Facebook, they're just calling to get your phone number, or not phone number, they're calling to get your address or something like that. That's a waste of a call. You want to make sure that your address is really present there. So there's a lot that you can learn from this. Also, most call tracking softwares also include call listening. Great tool to see if maybe your traffic and your website's performing incredibly, but maybe there's some gaps once they actually get on the call in the service that's making it not as profitable as a lead as it could be.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. We have had a few clients that have listened to their call tracking before and realized there's just amazing training opportunities. And then they work with training coaches, or they work with their associations or what have you, to kind of bring in some training programs to improve, that customer experience. I think that's really important. Well, okay, so now we've gone through a lot of things here. We've gone through performance, we've gone through functionality, content, talked about design. Now let's talk about the impact that this can actually make. And so walk us through when we see the impact of a higher conversion rate.
Cool. So we're looking right now at the same napkin that we did before, same amount of new visits to the website, but what an impact in having a better conversion rate, a better built website, a more clear direction, a better design site can have on those 400 people visiting. If it's converting at 15%, that's 60 leads that are going to come in. We're using the exact same math that 30% of those will actually turn into a patient, 18 new patients, $5,400 in revenue, literally by just tweaking your website to be better.
Yeah, and it may not just be tweaking, it
might be overhaul.
And a lot of times it's strategy from the beginning. Like, I think what people don't realize is the amount of strategy and work that goes into a website before you ever build. And so when you look at the different types of ways you can build a site, yeah, you can go on Squarespace and they have a pre-done website and you're just swapping in images and it looks fine. Then there's also like the independent contractor that can just do it all, and they're going to take your direction and build it. The other side of this is really looking at the strategy, everything you kind of talked about today, and mapping it out almost like a blueprint of a house and saying, this is exactly the foundation, this is the siding, this is the roof, this is all of the way that I want to kind of the flow of this to go, very much like you would in your practice. And you spend all that time thinking about the patient experience when they walk in. It's the same thing as the website. And so 15% website conversion rate is definitely not unheard of. But what happens when you actually add like marketing to this? And we're going to talk about this in other webinars, but like it gets pretty mind blowing when you think about you're actually adding in paying to have people come to your website.
Yes. So this is essentially putting some gas into the tank now. So you've been starting AdWords, and I'm gonna take this out. You started doing some AdWords, so now you're pumping gas into your tank. That's driving new business to your practice. So now that we're going from 400 new visits to 800 new visits, we're looking at the same metrics, 800 with a conversion rate of 5%, your old website. That's creating now 40 patient leads, which is great. That is going to lead to 12 potential actual calls with the same kind of calculation for $3,600. And we're looking also at the cost per lead. If you take that $1,000 and divide it by the amount of leads you got for it, that's about $25 a lead is what you're paying. Looking at column B, same exact math, but we're increasing your conversion rate, no more dollars invested, but the patient leads and the cost per lead are significantly up and down. Patient leads are getting way more of them, and your cost per lead is also going way down. So essentially, the more traffic that you can then get to your website, the more profitable that $1,000 investment is going to be. So in this, 36 leads came from that. Actual patient bookings, 10 grand in revenue, like huge jump just by having a better performing website. It's essentially, it's a waste to take all of these marketing dollars and pump them into a website that just doesn't work and you have no idea how it's performing, and all that money is just kind of going down the toilet. But if you're pumping it into a Ferrari that's built right and it's going to actually get you places, the return on investment is just way better.
Yeah, I think, and this is why I love digital marketing, is that there is math involved in this. It's not the old Don Draper days where you sit on a couch, you're having some scotch, even though that is also awesome. But you come up with a headline, you put it up, and you market it out and say, okay, I hope it works. This really comes down to a science and saying, when I can improve X, the equation becomes more profitable. And so digital marketing, when you talk about just the website experience, this clearly pays for itself. The website pays for itself because you're looking at like 1 month, maybe perhaps the first month of when you're launching. So if your website can improve in conversion rate that much in a month, and then in perpetuity, it's always adding that, your website, it's very hard to look at a website investment as a cost and not really an investment. And when you look at when you look back to our first slide that we had, major urban cities and then the rural cities and towns, the average conversion rate right now that we're seeing on the major urban cities is about 22%. Some are higher, but on average, we're seeing about 22%. And when you look at 2,500 visits, it's actually generating about 550 conversions. So huge opportunity. And in the smaller towns, we're kind of saying 50,000 population or smaller. The conversion rate actually goes up typically because there's less competition. When you look at the website traffic of 1,250 visits, overall conversions about 375. So huge opportunities that exist when you look at your website like a strategy and a tool, as you said at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
So as we move forward, and we're going to answer a few questions here with the couple minutes we have left, I do want to talk about marketing for ECPs and the support programs that we have right now coming out. We are launching a new social media program in about 3 weeks. It's an Instagram product. It is very high quality, great price point. We're very excited. We're going to be emailing you out about that. We have launched a marketing membership program. So about a year ago, we sort of changed our model and we launched a membership program that includes a website. It lets you actually pay the website out over 2 years, so you own the site. We include video library, a social media library. You work with a marketing director from a strategic standpoint, developing an annual plan and your social media strategy and all of that. And then here in the next couple of weeks, we are also creating and providing relaunch packages. So when your doors are open and you want to ensure that you're busy heading out into kind of that new wave of what the world looks like when you're allowed to open, then we absolutely want to be there to support you with a relaunch digital marketing package. So that will include a video, it'll include social posts, it'll include a pop-up for your website, an e-blast to email all of your patients. So all of that's coming. I would just watch out for that in the next week or two. Our team is busy at work right now trying to finalize the details there. When we look at next week, I am very proud to say that I'm hosting again two of our best and brightest. We have Bryn Lowe, who is a SEO and content strategist. She will be really walking us through SEO for eye care practices. And Wade Horb, who is our VP of Sales, will be joining us. He absolutely loves SEO, and I couldn't keep him away from doing this webinar. So both of them will be joining us next week. Before we get into Q&A, I would like to thank J&J Vision, again, their support is incredible. They really are involved in the content of these webinars and making sure that they are valuable. So I would like to say thank you to them. And so Jess, do you mind just giving us a quick recap before we move to kind of closing out?
Yeah, so kind of, I won't read off the whole thing, but really what I want to encourage you to do from here is kind of two things. You can either take a look at your website and start analyzing it, just step back, maybe get some other people in the room with you with fresh eyes that can look at it and see what it's saying. Does it speak to who you are as a brand? Does it speak to your practice? Is it easy to use? Is it easy to find what you want them to do? If I wanted to call you, would I have to navigate all through the site to get there? If I wanted to book an appointment, is it going to be a pain, or is it easy to do? Like, just simple user experience things are a great place to start. Look at the design of your website. Does it feel cookie cutter? Does it feel like every other practice down the line? Might want to revisit that then. Look at the mobile experience. Bring it up on your phone, click through, play with some buttons. Does it all work properly? Does it make sense? Is it cooperating with what you wanted to do? If you wanted to make a call on your mobile, how easy is it to do on your site? Look at your content, look at look at what you want to concentrate on in your business for the next few months. How are those services featured on your website? Are they a little bit? Are they buried? Are they loud and clear? Are you providing answers to questions? If someone searched, why are my eyes red? Can you answer that on your website? Because that's what people are searching for. Use the tools, run it through Copyscape, run it through Test My Site, see how your site speed is performing, measure your performance on all of these different tracking. Make sure you have Google Analytics on your website. We have no idea how it's actually performing if we don't have any tracking on there to begin with. Or easily just go to Marketing for ECPs and we'll do all that work for you for free. So I'm happy to geek out on websites. So I see a whole bunch of questions on here that I'm antsy to answer. So if I don't get to all of them here in the next minute, I'll happily stay on and go through a few of them with you guys. But if you just want our opinion, send it on through.
Yeah, this is typically an hour. We're going to extend just a few minutes so that we can answer a few of these questions. While we're doing that, I'm going to leave this slide up just so you know where to go to get a website audit, but also where to go to download any of our COVID-19 resources. We have other webinars. We have one on e-commerce. We have one on social media. We have one on building your YouTube presence. And that's where all of these great webinars will be. So Jess, as we get into Q&A, I think I'm going to ask about the different language. So if you have a portion of your website in a different language, does that scare people away from continuing?
No. Short answer, no, it doesn't. It shouldn't scare people away. If you service in multiple languages and the neighborhood and the community that you service speaks multiple languages, it's only going to do you better to have it be visible on there. If you're primarily speaking in English, I would recommend keeping the site in one language, but then maybe building it so that you can switch language functionality and do it in French or Spanish or Mandarin, what have you. Or you can just take a few pages that are really speaking specifically to concerns and just like build one kind of page dedicated to it. In terms of SEO, it's kind of difficult to rank with a multi-language site, but definitely want to make sure that you're appealing to everybody in your community and you're also making them feel welcome.
Great. Let's go to, do you recommend adding links to your websites? So in this case, what I would say is if it provides a great patient experience to provide a link recommending somebody to another business or to an article where they can read or watch more information, then I would say yes. Anything you are creating on your website that creates a great experience and it makes it easy for your patients to access information and answer their questions, I would say yes. If there's an ability for you to take that information that you're linking to and repurposing and putting it on your website and including it in your information, either on your blog or on your service page, then I would say that's what I would recommend. We had another question about unique content when it comes to terms and conditions. No, that does not have to be unique. That is pretty standard. And I would say the easiest way is just finding one online and maybe having it run through your lawyers, your legal department. But those are definitely not considered. That's something that can be pretty standard in general. We had Chuck ask a question regarding that the focus should always be the website. How does Facebook and Instagram, play into this? And is it just purely to drive people to the website? Jess, what do you think?
Instagram and Facebook have their places. It's how you engage with the community, really. And you can build your social presence by touching your clients in different mediums there. Does it drive traffic back to the website? Absolutely. It depends on the medium that you're using and how you're using it. If you're running ads on Facebook, those are usually going to pull back to the website because we want them to book an appointment that way. If you're using Instagram to be social and engaging and showing off new product, Instagram is a great tool to keep things fresh. I would say if you have a great Instagram presence and you're actively posting on it, we can even embed your Instagram feed into your website. So whatever is new and happening there is always going to show up. It's a great tool and it's got its own purpose, but it's all for good.
Cool. Well, everybody, thank you very much for watching today. Thank you, Jess. That was amazing. I'd love to see what you are crocheting. It's needlepoint. What are you doing? What's the hobby?
It's cross-stitching.
Cross-stitching, you're right. I'm excited to see a finished product there. For anyone that has any questions remaining, even in the future, put them into the chat. We will come back, we will answer them. If you are looking for a website audit, a marketing audit, visit our website, marketing4ecps.com, and we will be in touch with you within the next day or so. Thank you very much and enjoy, and we will see you next week.